A few months ago, I did a review on one of the fastest and what I described as the most fun mousepad that I've ever used. And of course, I'm talking about the Vancer ICE. But since then, Vancer has actually come out with a new and improved, bigger and better version. And you may have also noticed there's different colors available now. The one I have is obviously the purple one, although it does change color depending on the angle of the lighting, and that's just the nature of these fiberglass infused pads. Speaking of which, I do have a durability update on my original one. Unfortunately, after about 2 months of heavy use, it did develop an extremely slow spot that even washing didn't fix. But I think it's important to note that I really abused this thing. I went as far as using glass mouse gates and the North Command Gaming Vandal, which has this wrist rest attached, which occasionally will scratch and drag on the pad, even though it does have PTFE on the bottom. So in terms of durability, I really pushed the limits to see how long it would take to stress for, and it turns out that was about 2 months of heavy use. But again, that was not just with typical PTFE skates. So I think it's reasonable to expect it to last at least double that if you're just using it normally. I also think it's important to mention I haven't seen anyone else really talk about this, so it's very possible that my pad was just for some reason an outlier. Just one pad wearing down isn't enough data to conclude anything, and I'm only telling you this anecdotally because I think it's important to share my experience with you as a reviewer. Now, that aside, as I've said in the past, this is still one of my favorite speed pads, and the updates that Vancer have done have only made it better. The most drastic change that you've probably already noticed is the size increase. So previously, the Vancer ICE was only available in a 450 by 400mm size, but this new one is now 500mm by 500mm, which if you have the desk space for, is absolutely amazing. Especially for vertical movements because you don't tend to run out of mousepad space as much. And it just gives you a little bit of extra time before you have to recenter your mouse, which sometimes can be the small detail that wins or loses a tracking fight. Speaking of which, Vancer's also made some tweaks to the surface to help with tracking issues on the Pixart 3395 and 3399. To be honest, the surface still feels incredibly similar, and if anything, the new one might be a teeny tiny tad slower, but it's pretty hard to even notice this, and I could be imagining it. Either way, this is definitely something that was needed because as more and more people got the original Vancer ICE, it started to become evident that some sensors would occasionally lose tracking briefly. And hopefully these new changes prevent that. Another quality improvement that Vancer has made is to the stitching. As you can see here, the stitching footprint has been reduced quite a lot, and it's also slightly more low profile now, which is always a welcome change as long as the overall stitching quality doesn't also go down. And in this case, it hasn't. Also, while on the subject of stitching, Vancer has also changed the direction of the tag to face on the outside of the pad instead of on the inside, which is a very small but much appreciated change. It's nice to know they listen to feedback. The last thing that has changed is actually the packaging, as it now ships in a flat box instead of being rolled up in a cylinder. And out of all the changes, this is probably my favorite. I especially like the warning they added on the back that says do not curl reversely, because last time some idiot made a crease in theirs by doing this while trying to make it lay flat. I may be that idiot. But moving on, just in case you're unfamiliar with the original Vancer ICE as the glide experience is nearly the same, I'll quickly give you a rundown, and if you want more information, I'll have my first review linked in the description. These mousepads are among the fastest cloth mousepads that you'll find. Their speed even resembles that of a hard pad like the SkyPad 3.0. But of course, because it's not a hard pad, you don't have to deal with that sticky feeling on your skin that oftentimes comes with the use of a hard pad. And it's also a lot more portable than a hard pad as well. But getting back to the glide, if you've never used anything this fast before, it will likely take you some time to adjust. But once you do, it's one of the most free feelings that you can get in terms of being able to control your micro adjustments. That feeling of fighting your mousepad to get your mouse to do exactly what you want it to do is almost completely gone with a pad like this. And the feeling of the glide is also one of the smoothest glides you can get. Once you switch from a control pad to a speed pad like this, almost all the shakiness in your aim is purely from your own movements rather than the jitteriness of your mousepad. It's also a really good way to measure the level of mouse control that you actually have. But this experience will be jarring to some, and it's not one I recommend to everyone. However, if you play fast-paced games where tracking matters a lot, I think it's certainly worth a try as you stand to gain the most from using a pad like this, as opposed to someone that only plays tac shooters. But of course, this comes down to preference as well. I think there will be a group of tac FPS players that could really enjoy a pad like this. It's just not really the typical solution that most would go for those types of games. But if you want to see a review of a control-based mousepad that is widely used in tac FPS games, then check out this video here. And consider subscribing if you want to stay up to date on new gaming peripherals.